Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 12:39 p.m. on Saturday, the 1st of July 2023. As you can see, the Tanya, that is me, is looking a bit tired and a bit haggard. I went dancing last night, and it was a very spiritual evening, or maybe not very spiritual, but I had an unusual occurrence happen. So I went out. I was wearing a nice corn blue, it's actually a summer dress, but I wore thick patterned black tights under it, and my studded bikey looking ankle boots, and my daggy old mother's cardigan that I revamped and dyed and I love, but it's a bit like daggy, but it's pure wool, so it keeps me quite warm. And then I teamed that up with my big heavy bikey jacket, with leather bikey jacket, which is also, it's actually a man's jacket that I bought in a second-hand shop years ago, and but it's also very lovely and warm for winter. So my talk's gone all wrong way around. So anyway, so I went out, and I made, just prior to going out, I made a lovely pair of with sterling silver wire earrings as a birthday present for my friend Jo, and I actually thought she'd be there because it was her birthday the day before. But the band that was playing is Venus Envy, and it's not her favourite band. And so I get there, and Venus Envy were indeed playing, and I messaged her because she wasn't there, and she said, "Oh no, I'm a bit tired and don't like the band," and they have improved over the years, to be fair. They used to be fairly woeful, but they have improved. So Venus Envy, if you're hearing this, my video, you have improved, and I stuck out the night with you, and I actually left because the regular DJ that was playing, plus I was getting a bit tired, but the regular DJ that was playing kept playing awful bloody hip-hoppy, boppy, house type music, which I hate. So I stayed out till about 1:30, and he came on at 11:30. So I put up with that shit for 2 hours, and that was enough. I got to go home, I'm tired. And if the music was good, I would have stayed out longer, depending on my level of fatigue, but it wasn't worth pushing myself out for. So, but anyway, the interesting thing that happened was earlier on in the evening, on my little spot that I guard like the casino demon / troll, my little energy centre right in front of the stage, that I zealously guard and I go to every week without fail. So anyway, 12 years I've had that spot. So of course all the regulars, they think I'm crazy, of course, but it's fine. There's a reason, there's a method in my madness. From my little spot there, I get to peruse the whole bar, and I feel relatively safe. And when I don't feel safe, I sort things out or I leave, according to the situation, right? So there is a method in my madness. But anyway, so I'm on my spot, dancing, joyously as I do, and so I look into the crowd, and there was a couple of women, and they were my vintage, and they would be in their 50s or late 50s, or perhaps even early 60s. And well, I assume they were both lesbian. They might not have been, but anyway, one of the women sort of had the short crew cut, very, very smart haircut, and she was wearing a waistcoat with tails, and it's very sort of a lot of gold through it, patterned, beautiful fabric waistcoat. and she had, I think she had black pants on. Yes, they were black pants, teamed up with the waistcoat with tails. She looked fabulous. And then she had like a gold type bolo down to here, type of pendant, looked a bit like a bolo. But her friend was wearing a bright orange pantsuit, jacket and slacks, also looked very fabulous. And looking a little bit more feminine, but I mean, I don't judge. I mean, my psychiatrist told me on Wednesday that I'm androgynous and have a lot of masculine energy, so I don't judge, and I don't care what someone's sexuality is really, but it's just how I observed how they presented themselves. Anyway, the more masculine, dykey looking woman who was dressed, her boots were to die for, darling. Oh my God, they were black boots, ankle boots, with gold type diamantes, a band like about that wide, all around the rim of them, and they were just spectacular. They were the most beautiful boots I've seen in ages. Anyway, but her friend, this is when they first kind of arrived, or I noticed them. Her friend wearing the pantsuit saw me and sort of looked frightened of me for some reason, or seemed to be, didn't like me. And I mean, I wasn't dressed in my normal glamour gear that I normally wear. Like I said, I just had this, very plain blue dress on with my boots. But anyway, or maybe that was the reason, or maybe she just thinks I'm weird because I'm on my spot doing my thing, But anyway, the other woman with the fabulous boots and the waistcoat looked at me in amazement and started to dance towards me. And then her friend actually recoiled and went and sat back down and looked at her friend in alarm that she was drawn to me. Of course she's drawn to me with my masculine energy and my witchy ways, It's completely harmless because I'm not gay, and I'm actually, not all that heterosexual anymore either. I'm just so asexual and celibate after many years that I very rarely have sexual attractions to anyone anymore. Like, haven't for years. So anyway, so the funny thing is, the woman and the dykey looking woman sort of dancing towards me, and she was oozing sexuality, and I'm standing back, well, not standing, dancing, but sort of observing, Anyway, I thought I liked her. I thought she's got style. So I pointed to her boots. She hadn't got close up to me. She didn't get close to me. But I pointed down to her boots, and I mouthed to her and I went, "Your boots, you look fabulous." And she was like, she was so thrilled. She ran to her friend in the pantsuit, and I saw her turn to me and point and said, "She just said my boots are fabulous." And they're both looking at me, and I'm smiling, and I nodded and I went, "That's right, they're fabulous." Anyway, so it was like a bit of an icebreaker, because then the woman in the orange pantsuit then approached me, and she said, "Oh, hello," and then it sort of broke the ice a bit. And I said to the other, I said, "Your boots are fabulous." I said, you just look absolutely fabulous." And I said, "Here's my boots." I said, "Your boots put my boots to shame." And she looks down, mine are all studded with buckles and, very bike. She was like nodding. And I swear to God, those boots she wore, I'm pretty sure, I mean, look, I'm not a snob and I'm not a fashionista. I wear whatever I defy. But I did notice there were some lovely boots. But last time I was in the city when I was going to buy silver wire for my jewellery projects, there were some fabulous boots in the Gucci shop. I think it was Gucci, which is the one that has two C's back together. is it Chanel or Gucci? Anyway, one of those fabulous shops. And there were boots, and I didn't even go and look at them because I would never be able to afford them unless I won lotto or killed 5 millionaires or something. I'm joking about killing millionaires. It's a fantasy of mine, but I'd never do it. Hang on a minute. This is my pruning saw. No, but honestly, I don't even go into those shops because it would just be a dull ache of like feelings of poverty and failure and something I can only dream of, right? So I looked at those boots and I just sort of went past the window in the shop and I was like, because if I had the money, I would have gone and instantly and bought them because they were just covered in diamantes and they were just fabulous. And then I was like, being practical, I was like, Tanya, if you had those boots, you'd probably lose the diamantes or they'd fall off, or and they'd be well over couple of $1,000 since they were Chanel. I think they were Chanel. And I was like, I'll be real, Tanya, even if you had the money, they're not practical, It's reached the point where you're so wealthy you can only wear things once and then throw them away because you're so extremely wealthy it wouldn't matter. But to me, like, my boots have to last me at least 5 to 10 years, If I buy a good pair of boots. Actually, I just got my boots repaired at the shoe repair shop because the heels are all worn down. So I do look after my things and I make them last. But I do like to buy good quality things, but I have never bought a Chanel pair of boots. And let's face it, at this stage of life, it's probably not likely to happen. Donations of Chanel boots are welcome, though. As long as I don't have to sign any contracts in blood with the devil or have to lie in bed next to a man that hates me like my husband, he never bought me Chanel boots either. So I was lying in bed next to a man that hated me for a lot less, for the price of a roof over my head, which wasn't worth it, and I had to walk away. Literally had to chew my arm off, and the expensive legal wrangles that happened after, it just wasn't worth it. It's why I've never married again, people. Why would you marry again and trap oneself? Anyway, so here's the interesting thing that happened after that. So those delightfully elegant and stylish women left, and I carried on dancing. And I part of what happens, which is deliberate. I like dancing, but part of what happens when I go dancing is I enter what I call the zone. And I enter into like a trance state, and that usually happens usually when after a few hours of dancing, when I'm on my third wind of I'm actually exhausted, but I've pushed myself through, and I'll enter this kind of zone where I'm just aware of everyone around me and hyper vigilant, hyper conscious because of my hyper aware because of my trauma issues, but at the same time I'm like, in this altered state. So, but the unusual thing that happened last night was I actually, when I entered the altered state, I was probably in a kind of a light trance before that happened, but I was actually conscious of it, which is what was unusual. It was around about 12:30 in the morning. I think it was around about that time. I was standing up and I was dancing, but suddenly I felt like I didn't feel anything, a spirit or entity jump into me per se, but I was conscious that something was with me or inside of me. I can't explain it. Like to the non-initiated or people who don't understand about the spirit world and trance and possession, temporary possession, because I wouldn't invite that. But it's hard to explain. But what happened was I was like dancing, and then all of a sudden I just felt this like it wasn't a clicking sound, but just this instant shift in my energy. And I thought, something really ancient has just stepped into my body. And I found myself, and it felt ancient. It felt masculine. And I found myself, I turned my head up, and there's people in the casino, they watch me all night long, men. I call them the voyeurs. Oh, look at this little birdie. I call them voyeurs because they watch me, but I can't understand why they watch me now, because I must look so strange sometimes when I'm in my full trance zone dance, right? So I'm standing there, I felt like something had just stepped into me, like they'd put me on like an overcoat. It really felt like I'd voided myself completely out. Probably had, because I was reaching the point of exhaustion then. And anyway, I found myself look to the right, and the way I looked around the room was like I was seeing everything for the very first time. Like I'd literally, someone who just arrived in that space and didn't know anybody. It was weird. And so I looked around, and then I looked up at what I call New Orleans, which is the architecture that is above my head, or to the back of me, back of the stage. I call it jokingly New Orleans because it looks a bit like New Orleans. Not that I've ever been there either. Coco Chanel, send me a ticket to New Orleans and all the sacred spaces before I die, because I'm running out of time. Anyway, it's a manifestation, people. It could happen. So anyway, you have to laugh. So anyway, so I'm looking up at the architecture, the beautiful New Orleans type architecture, and I'm just looking at it like, oh yes, like it's the first time I'm seeing it. And then I looked into the crowd, and there's a man who's been staring at me for years. I think he once did actually bother to try to have a conversation with me, so he's not a complete weirdo like a lot of them are. But he watches me, and he's got very lovely blue eyes. He's bald, but very lovely blue eyes. Like, he's not hideous. I don't like bald men, but he's not hideous. And he was watching me. And so I'm looking at him out of my eyes, but it's not really me looking at him, if you get my vibe. And he's looking at me, this is across the room, and he just sort of smiled. I don't think he could tell that I had been briefly walked into. And so I smiled back, and then I looked to the left, and I'm looking again, people to the left of me. It's not much to the left because the wall runs along, where I stand and sit. And so I looked down, and then I danced even wilder. And I thought, right, this is what I call the fourth wind, or the fifth wind that I get when I'm, but physically depleted from dancing. I get the surge of energy, and off I go again. But it was the first time in years that I actually felt something other than my own spirit, like descend into me, and then look out through my eyes, almost as if I was a meat golem, right? Which was a little bit alarming, because I haven't had that experience before. I had the experience at Ecstatic Dance back in 2000. It was just after my horrific gallbladder surgery, so it was around about October, November 2019, where I was dancing, and that ecstatic dance, the trance is deliberately kind of orchestrated by the binaural beats of the music. So it's a deliberate trance that you put yourself into in that space, right? With full intention, and there's rituals, and it's all very shamanic and ritualistic. So in that instance, we were actually in a church hall that they hired, and I was dancing, and I saw a vision. it was actually appeared to me as like a neon electric light, like a Paleolithic drawing of a woman dancing in front of me, but it was like very like a neon sign. If someone had done a caricature of a woman in a neon sign, and I had my eyes closed and I was actually in deep trance in that dance space, and I saw this figure like literally writhing, moving in front of me, and I looked at this figure and I sort of, in my mind's eye, because my eyes were closed, I said, "Oh," I said, "Welcome, who are you?" And I got sort of a little bit of a shock because she replied, "I am Lilith." And then I sort of went, "Oh," because in Christian and Judeo-Christian beliefs, they characterise Lilith as this demon that, she became a demon after defying Adam, because he only wanted to have missionary sex, and she got bored with him. Well, why wouldn't you? There's nothing worse than boring sex. For 12 years I had it too. So maybe that's why I attract that energy to myself. So anyway, she I said to her, "Oh," and I tried not to freak out because, Lilith is a very powerful goddess, ancient goddess, or in Christian belief, or Judeo-Christian belief, demon. And I'm thinking, well, I'm on sacred ground, I'm on hallowed ground because it's a church and it's the church hall, so I'm safe. And she's showing herself to me for a reason. So I said to her in the vision, I said, "Oh, welcome, Lilith." I said, "Why are you showing yourself to me?" And then she didn't speak. She didn't say her name. She didn't speak verbally, apart from telling me her name. And she just showed me these really unusual symbols, which I recognised immediately were alchemical symbols, but I didn't know what they meant. So I thought I must remember what those look like, And so as soon as I got home from that trance dance, ecstatic dance, which I used to really enjoy, till the space got, the people there got a bit toxic, but I did enjoy it. I went there for a couple of years actually. But anyway, I came home and I quickly drew down the symbols I was shown by the entity claiming to be Lilith. And I was gobsmacked, because when I Googled the symbols, they were the symbols for the planet Saturn and the planet Jupiter, which also in alchemy represent lead and tin, if I remember correctly. Now, in that time, I had not long prior, only a couple of months prior, had a near-death experience during the surgery, well, post the surgery, right? Just post the surgery, my lungs shut down, which they warned me could happen. They were very concerned about that with my sleep apnea. So it did actually happen. So I'm like, okay, I've had this near-death experience and I'm recovering from the surgery and I'm back dancing again, but now I'm seeing like visions of Lilith and I'm being shown these alchemical symbols, and what does it all mean? I didn't know what it meant back at that time frame. I just made a note of it, So and then along came COVID. It was around back in November 2019, but it didn't get announced here in Australia till about, I think it was January 2020, or was it February? I can't remember now. But anyway, I thought, oh, the goddess came to me and was trying to warn me that I would need to recalibrate my life and find my little niche and find a way to support myself. And it actually wasn't until January 2021 when, in full despair with this whole COVID epoch and the draconian measures and I was in absolute terror because, I exist on a disability pension and I don't have money, and I don't have superannuation, don't have a partner to look after me and provide for me, and I thought I have no future, so the only way out is to find a way to sustain myself or suicide. And I've tried the suicide avenue before. People don't recommend it because, suicide is painless but it's permanent, which I joked about for many, many years. But the thing is, when I did reach that point, the gods vomited me back to earth yet again. So I'm not allowed to suicide, and I'm certainly not allowed to die until the gods decide it is my time. They are quite adamant about that. So just watching my little birdie climbing up the chair. What you doing, Charlie? So anyway, so 2021, January, I put a prayer out to the gods, to the angels, the Holy One, and all manifestations. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to survive on this planet because of COVID, and they keep telling us we're all going to die, which I don't believe for one moment. But having said that, my health has been precarious since early childhood, and it's no longer survivable. And back in those days, I was having terrible problems with my lungs. I was very, very ill, and I actually thought I wasn't going to survive it. I really thought that. So, my lungs are not great. They never will be great. But at that point in time, it was reaching kind of a crisis point. And so I was like, I need to find a way to support myself financially, which, by the way, here I am. What is it? The 1st of July, 2023. I'm still not able to support myself. I'm still subsisting on the disability pension. But in the last 2.5 years, I have worked very hard at learning to make silver, learning silversmithing, learning to make jewellery out of silver. And of course, I have a long way to go on that journey. It's like a proper apprenticeship. If I was able to get apprenticeship is 5 years, isn't it, for any trade? But I've spent the last 2 years learning how to solder and learning how to, pierce saw, and I just did a beautiful coin yesterday, cut out, spent the day cutting that out, and filing it and smoothing down the rough edges. I'm actually really, I'm really proud of myself for my achievements. They're not huge achievements in the grand scheme of things. It's nothing that's going to contribute to world peace, or certainly won't find me a handsome, devoted lover, a partner, or life partner. But it sparks joy, and it hasn't made me any money yet, because I did go to the markets last year. I went for 3 months. They were a monthly market, and I went 3 times. No sales, and as my psychiatrist pointed out, we're in a recession. Like, people aren't buying because they're terrified how they're going to feed their families, which I understand. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. So but I've spent the last 2.5 years really, really struggling hard to acquire the tools and the equipment that I need. And there's always more. There's so many more tools and equipment that you need. But I've got the basics, and I've worked so hard at achieving this dream of being an financially independent businesswoman again. And it could happen. It could happen one fine day. So there's that. So anyway, last night when I realised while I was dancing that some powerful, very powerful entity just I can't even the sensation was almost like, when you step out of a shower and you shed a towel. It's like that. It was like something just slipped right into my psychic or my soul space. And I would never allow that to happen, but I was conscious, very conscious that, something was with me, and I was looking at things with renewed eyes. And the other thing I was reminded of, while I was looking around, while I was dancing, was how many people that were regulars that came there for, I've been going to that dance space for 12 years. How many people don't come anymore? And, there's a lot that aren't coming anymore. And a lot that were long-time regulars. So I don't know whether it's fear of COVID that's keeping them away, or poverty issues, or what, but I was looking around quite circumspect, thinking, isn't it interesting that a lot of these people aren't coming anymore, and there were a lot that were toxic and vicious towards me for years, went on for about 5 years, that don't come anymore. Well, I'm glad to see the back of them, don't miss them, but there were a few that had danced in that scene with me for years that I am disappointed don't come anymore, and I wondered why. I hope they haven't died and that they're not sick, but it's kind of an eerie feeling that they're staying away. So we're in transition of the birth pangs of the new coming up for air, literally, from the jackboot on the back of our neck with the COVID oppression. And it feels to me like a transition period where you just like literally when you're giving birth, but you can't push yet. You just got to hold that space and maintain that equilibrium until the birth pangs come and you're pushing through into a new paradigm. So is it good or is it bad? That I don't know, but I will need to increase my personal protection, because having an entity literally just don me like a coat and look around everywhere was an interesting experience, but I don't welcome usually spirits to inhabit my body quite so obviously and consciously, with that I was consciously aware of it. That was the alarming part, right? Because normally when you have a spirit presence channel through you, you're not conscious of them being there, kind of thing. It's certainly not initially. And it makes me wonder how long this has been going on, that I've been soul-ridden. But I did say to my friend Jared the other day that I felt like I had brought something back from my last near-death experience. Something a bit dark, and not evil, but dark in that they are circumspect and wise and ancient, but they are extremely protective of me, which is a good thing, because I've had enough shit in my life, but I did worry for the initial few years, months, especially after seeing Lilith showing herself to me, that it was something perhaps that was potentially dangerous. I don't think that anymore. Because there's been no evidence to suggest that it was harmful for me or anyone else around me in any way, shape or form. In fact, when that young Māori girl escaped from that car a few months ago, I think it was January or February, and I happened to be standing eating my chips, across the road from when that happened. My angel, or that entity that is with me, I was fully embodied. It was like I was completely prepared to, have to go to war and protect that girl, which I did protect her, and a man that was a bystander and I we did protect her. We walked her to the police station and got her to make a report. So, but we didn't have to protect her as in, fight off the offender physically, which I was relieved about actually. But this is the thing. I think when this angel or entity or energy is with me, people who do have bad intentions towards me see it. They get frightened on some level, because I remember standing there trying to figure out, I was actually trying to figure out what was going on, because I didn't realise the young woman had jumped out of the car. I just heard screaming, and I'm like, obviously in one of my altered states from dancing all night where I was so exhausted, and I was like trying to take it all in, like I was trying to what's going on here. And then I saw the man outside of his car swaggering and looking really intimidating, and I do remember that I just was eating my chips, and then I'm just standing there, and I just stood in my own power and just stared at him, what my psychiatrist calls my death stare. And I was not really death staring him, I was still trying to figure out what the fuck is going on here. And I don't know, maybe it was because of my presence across the road and of Elizabeth Street, being an older woman, or the fact that the homeless men further up were going, mate, you're driving up the wrong side of the road, and you need to go, kind of thing. But anyway, all those circumstances came into perfect alignment, where the attacker of this young woman took off, got back in his car, and he just took off, fortunately. So but I was aware that I had this presence with me that literally went like from behind me, which it does when I'm feeling threatened. Something will step in behind me, and I call it my angel, but to be honest, I can't see it, so I don't know what it really is, whether it's just my fantasy that I'm protected, but you do feel this energy go shh, it's quite astonishing. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often. I haven't been under threat for quite some time, which I'm grateful for. And it was such a lovely day, but look, it's getting all cold in the garden. Lights going all funny, and probably going to get some rain. Anyway, but that's my video. I just wanted to make a recording of the fact that I'm now consciously aware that I'm channeling or embodying another consciousness during my trance dance. So I'll have to be not where I didn't feel the least bit frightened, and I didn't feel under attack or anything like that, but I'll just have to be a little bit more conscious that next time I'll say, look, you just can't jump into me anytime you like, and you need my permission, and this is my body, and set up firmer spiritual boundaries, because that could potentially get dangerous if it's something malevolent or something ill-intentioned. It could potentially turn ugly, right? But as I said, there was no harm, and I was just looking around in observer mode. I mean, in psychiatry you'd call it disassociation, right? So I guess maybe I was just in a disassociated state, because I'd danced myself to the point of exhaustion. But no, I've been disassociated many times, daily, and it felt different. It literally felt like something had just stepped into me. Whereas disassociation, it's more of a mental process where you feel yourself just drifting out, and you sort of observe your body and your environment as though it's back. Beauregard. You observe your body and your environment and people around you quite dispassionately and detached, actually, because it's a trauma response when you disassociate, usually. Although I disassociate when I get bored too. If I'm in company and I'm utterly bored, or I'm lost in my own thoughts or worries about something, I can have entire conversations with my daughter and my friend, and later on not remember a thing because I was physically interacting, but my spirit was not there. And it's something that they used to get very angry and frustrated about. And like Krista used to say, "Oh, you're not listening to me, Mum." It's not that I wasn't listening to her. I was listening, and I could repeat verbatim what she was saying. At times, sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I was totally not consciously aware. But there's times when I would just be, the lights were on, but nobody's home, so she might as well have been talking to a pillow. It used to be quite severe, especially when I was on psych meds up until 2016. You were literally just talking to a zombie. You might get interaction with me, you might not. It was hit and miss. So I'm enjoying being fully embodied and conscious and aware and articulate and intelligent and home in my own spirit. But in trance states brought on by excessive exercise or dancing, or getting into the zone with my jewellery when I'm really hyper-focused and I'm really pushing myself, I will also enter that kind of trance state. Obviously leaves me open to my spirit guides or my angelic guides to just jump in and take over. And sometimes, that's when the magic happens. Like I made a beautiful pendant a couple of months ago that I didn't think I'd be able to make, but because I was hyper-focused and absorbed with the muse, I just went with it, and I just set it up outside on my little soldering station out here, and got my MAP gas and set fire, fully expecting it all to melt. And you know what? The magic happened. It just soldered perfectly, and it made a lovely pendant, and I was just thrilled. And by the same token, it was beyond my skills at the time. I was actually challenging myself and seeing if I could do it. And then I realised when you reach a certain level of accomplishment in any task that people take on, and you just get into the zone and you just let it flow naturally, you astonish yourself at what you're able to accomplish, right? Artistically. So I was like, who made that pendant? Was it me, or was it my spirit guides helping me? But anyway, it's not that professional. You can still see, with an expert eye, that it's done by an amateur. But I was just so thrilled that I had that extra guidance, inspiration, muse to perform that task. So anyway, I got home last night. After I left the casino, I actually went to get some chips because I thought I was feeling in an altered state, and maybe I'm hungry. So I went and got the chips. I walked past the homeless people to get the chips, and I had $7.95 in my change in my little purse. And I got to the kebab shop and I ordered the chips, and they were $7. So I knew I had 95 cents left, right? And I always try to keep a little bit of change, usually, $2 or $4 if I can afford it, to give to the homeless people, because invariably someone asks you for money. And I like to, I just like to contribute a little bit when I can, if I have any money at all. Often I don't. So I bought the chips, but I knew I still had 95 cents left in my little purse. And I walked back across George Street, and so there was a couple of homeless people, an Aboriginal woman and another man. Oh, hello, hello. And the Aboriginal woman said to me, have you got any change? And I smiled at her because she should have asked me when I walked past her the first time, but then I wouldn't have been able to afford my chips, to be frank. So that would have annoyed me. But anyway, but she didn't ask me when I was going. She asked me when I came back. She said, have you got any change? And she could see I had my chips in my hand. And I said to her, so maybe she just asked me for change, just almost as a reflex thing that you do when you're homeless and you're on the streets, you know. That's your primary existence, so you're always asking for change, right? So it becomes habit forming, I guess. I guess I would form that habit if I was on the streets too. No judgment, don't get me wrong, no judgment. So I said to her, so I smiled and I said, oh, love, I said, I've just spent my money on these chips, I said, and she went, oh. I went, but, I said, I have 95 cents left. She went, oh, okay. And I said, 95 cents doesn't buy you much, doesn't even get you a coffee. I said, but it's quarter of a coffee, so it's better than nothing. And she sort of looked at me and brightened. She went, oh, okay. So I gave her the 95 cents. And I thought, oh, this is kind of embarrassing that I only had 95 cents to give her. But I'm right, it's better than nothing. Someone else might give her $1 and someone else might give her $2. Before you know it, she can buy a coffee, right? Anyway, she was quite a sweet woman. She said to me, she said, oh, it was a bit strange. She asked me actually thinking about it. And by the way, I did still feel like I had something either in me or with me, right? I still felt altered. And I was quite tired too from dancing. And I just wanted to, and when I've got food, I'm very Viking, you know, I just wanted to focus on feasting. So she said, where are you going now, love? I said, oh, because I must have started to walk to go across to the Queen's Park. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to sit over there on the park bench and eat my chips. And she went, what, alone? And I went, yep. Because, you know, when I've been dancing for hours and I've been in like a crowded space, all the energies around me, it is overwhelming for me with my nervous system. So I like to sit on my own at the end of the night, usually in summertime, not in winter. My usual practice was I used to go and get something to eat, and then I'd sit and eat, and I'd talk to the homeless people. I'd talk to my busker friend and sit with him often. He doesn't like it when I eat near him because, I don't know, paranoid. And but anyway, so I said to her, oh no, I like to sit on my own. She said, but it's so bitterly cold tonight, which it was very cold tonight. It's actually quite cold today. And so I said to her, oh, I said, yes, it is very cold, but I said, don't worry, darling. I said, I'm dressed quite warmly, I'll be okay. She looked at me a bit strangely. So, and this is the thing about people who are homeless, right? People judge them viciously, and just mainstream people are just vile to the homeless. But often they're very gifted people, believe it or not, and they're astute and they're streetwise, and they have their own angels and demons with them. Not all, but some are schizophrenic, or some have had drug problems, some have walked the razor blade of life where they've nearly died many times, like me. Some have had, horrific abusive childhoods, like me. So it's just probably why we see each other and we connect, because we recognise each other's spirit, each other's trauma levels, each other's gifts, right? So I thought she was quite lovely, worrying about me sitting alone in the cold eating my chips. But I went and did it anyway because I defy. And so I went over there and I just sat there on the park bench and, ate my chips and watched George, the busker, who's a friend of mine, finishing up for the night. And he was a fair distance away because he's further up near the Elizabeth Street entrance to the casino. And then I watched Frank, who is also a busker, take over from George. So I'm thinking, oh, right, must be about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And summer, he plays longer if it's a good night, you know. So anywho, so I'm observing all this and I'm eating my chips and gobbled them all down. And I was just, you know, looking around the park as if it was for the first time, like really observing. And so I'm thinking, well, who is this with me? They're really looking at everybody, you know, and everything. Almost like they're being protective, checking out my environment, seeing who is it I hang out with and who interacts. Really studying. It was like they were studying. This energy, studying everything, right? And I'm also consciously looking around too. And then I got a craving for my ex-lover, Dave, which I do from time to time. But this has been going on for months now, months and months. And it's odd because when I used to get this kind of craving or obsessions about him, that I used to like take myself to task about and think, oh, you're just mad, Tan, you're just mad. Like, why would you think about that man? He was a monster to you. He was really quite awful. But invariably in years gone by, when I'd be hyper-focused on him, sometimes for days or weeks, I would run into him somewhere or he would come to the casino, usually with a woman in tow, just to be crass and awful, you know. It was awful how he treated me. But I'd be like, there you are, popping up now because I've been thinking about you. So, and I don't think this time that he'll turn up, that I'll see him anywhere, because I feel like he's long gone now. You know, that there's a real disconnect now, which is good, you know, because I need to heal and I need to allow new love that's supportive and nurturing and nourishing and kind and cherishing and respectful and noble and loyal and faithful into my life. That's a lot, isn't it? It's a big ask, but it's not really a big ask if you find the right person who's a decent person and loving and generous and sweet. There are good men out there. I just haven't had the good fortune of having love relationships with them. I mean, I have my wonderful platonic friend Jared and my wonderful platonic therapeutic alliance with my psychiatrist. And, you know, I have other men friends in my life who do treat me with decency and kindness. But when it's come down to a sexual or romantic relationship, I don't even want to put it into words how monstrous it all ended up being. So I'm conscious that I actually went out last night hoping to meet someone new and lovely. And I did. I met a lovely lesbian couple who were lovely and were new, but are not available because they're lesbians and because, you know, they were a couple. So I'm not laughing at them, I'm just laughing at myself. So I did meet new people and lovely people out in my dance scene last night, and I did admire the ladies' boots. They were fabulous. So Coco Chanel and me would be simpatico, but I lack the champagne income, don't I? What can we do about that? Just keep dancing, just keep making jewellery, just keep taking delight in my life, with my little bird and my little doggy and my little garden. Oh, it's a little bit pathetic, isn't it? Anyway, West End drumming is on tomorrow, but I'm not going to go. I'm going to take a break from that because in a way it's it's another connection, a potential connection I kept open in case the former lover decides to get his shit together and come and look for me, right? Which he did at one stage, but again, I kind of ignored it because he brings other women, and I'm not into that. I'm not into that polyamorous, sick, sadistic scene where I'm left fourth on the bowstring while he plays the fiddle with everyone else. That's not what I'm wanting out of life, right? I deserve to be cherished and adored in a monogamous, caring, loving partnership. I don't just deserve it. I crave it, and I desire it, and I want it. And maybe I'm craving and desiring it too much, and that's why the gods withhold it from me. But I did consciously contribute to that drumming circle and my friend who ran it for 4 years now, because I joined that drumming circle and I was still writhing in agony 3 weeks after my gallbladder surgery. So it's been 4 years. And I feel a little bit taken for granted, quite frankly. And, I was sent a message that drumming was on tomorrow and that she's found someone to help, run the drumming circle. And I said, isn't that nice? You found someone to help out. Like, what was I doing for the last 4 years? Scotch mist? So I was really a little bit pissed off. But then I thought in the broad scheme of things, it doesn't matter. I enjoyed going to the drumming. I went there quite voluntarily of my own free will. No one broke my arms or no one coerced me. I went there all through COVID when no one else came because they were all frightened of dying. There was just, my friend and her husband that run the circle, myself. Sometimes there was only one or two other people, and we intrepidly keep that drumming circle going in an actual zombie apocalypse where people were too frightened to participate, right? And now I'm tired. Now I'm done. I said to my friend, I fought a lot on Facebook and advocated. For years I fought against and on the subject of child sexual abuse. And for the last 4 years, nearly 4 years, I've been fighting about the COVID draconian epoch and all the evils that were done to the global population there. And I said to her, it's winter time and I don't want to go and be in drumming circles sitting on the cold ground because my health is precarious. I don't want to get sick like I did last time I went. So, I'm not going in winter time. I might go again when the weather warms up if I feel like going, if I'm not too tired. But I'm conscious that it was also a way of keeping a little tiny thread of attachment, of hope that doofus brains might grow up one day and evolve and come to me at drumming. And that's a schoolgirl fantasy that I need to evolve from, because why would anyone love someone who was awful to you anyway? It's just not logical. Mr. Spock said, that is not logical. And also I need to detach and stop being involved in this enmeshment and toxicity and being at the beck and call of people who devalue and underappreciate me. So the only reason why I'm still going to the casino and dancing the wild shamanic Tanya dance is because I get benefit out of it physically by having exercise, and I have a few nice friends that I see there, and I get into the zone and I get my shamanic messaging from the gods or the entity that jumped into me last night to have a good look at everything, make sure that I'm safe, probably. So there is a benefit to that. But in the meantime, I need to focus more on getting myself established in a safe and financially stable way, which I don't know how to do because no one's buying my jewellery in this awful paradigm we're living in. So I just need to trust in the gods, my angels, the Holy One, and all manifestations, and trust in my own indomitable will and persistence, like I persisted with the drumming, even though I knew at times that it was a little bit toxic of me to be sitting there waiting for some dead shit man who was cruel to turn up and do the right thing by me. And yes, integrity and honesty and credibility is everything, people. So I'm being really honest with myself that I was holding that gossamer thread of hope. Even though I rail against all the awful things that he said and did to me, the love was authentic, and I'm still under its influence. But, I did meet an Irishman a couple of weeks ago at the casino who seemed quite interested, but again, wanting to fight and argue with me about inanities. So I'm really not wanting relationships predicated on conflict or avoidance or sadomasochism. That's not what I want for myself. So I'm happy to sit in my garden. But I did go out last night hoping that gentleman might be there, and I was going to actually say to him, if you're interested, in me as a person, I am available to be dated. And, if things work out well and good, and if they don't, but, don't come here wanting to fight me, because that's not my style. That's not my love language. So anyway, I didn't get to say that because he didn't show up, and that's okay. Once again, it's my angel or that entity, whoever they are, protecting me and making sure that I don't fall into the abysmal rabbit hole of false love and superficial fucks and unintegrated or disintegrated men who just think that I'm their whipping post, right? It's not my scene. Not my scene. Did that for years, not my scene, So my hope and my intentions are honourable, that I open spiritually and mentally and emotionally and physically and sexually, eventually, not straight away, because I've set firm boundaries around that, to a man who's worthy of me, who treats me with basic human kindness, respect and honour and integrity. And if that person never eventuates in my life, because they haven't in 58 years, I'm okay with that, I can survive on my own. It's becoming ever more daunting because, energy costs have increased, and food's increasing, and I'm alone and isolated, and I do get frightened at times. I do have moments of panic when I think, how am I going to continue to exist on this planet? But there's been so much richness and goodness in my life with learning my silversmithing skills and continuing with my dancing, and the sweetness and kindness and literal nourishment of my friends, like couple of whom actually buy me groceries and help me out from time to time, which is wonderful and sweet of them. I'm a bit like Blanche Dubois, always relying on the kindness of strangers, and it is demoralising. I would like to be back in full power and of my existence and be financially independent, and I don't know, maybe buy my own house one day, but I don't think at this late stage of life that's possible. But that little bird's back, that's why I'm looking up. But we'll see what the gods have in store for us. Patience truly is a virtue, and persistence, and living in harmonic resonance with God and the gods and the spirits and the ancestors that love me, and my dog and my bird and my garden. And I know it gets a bit weird, people, but that's how I exist. That's how I get through my life. I don't do drugs. I don't drink to excess. I don't have meaningless sexual hookups or encounters anymore, and haven't for many years now. I'm growing back my own mind, body and spirit, and my own power, and I'm loving my life, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the extra time the gods gave me, even though I refer to it as being vomited back to earth, and it was actually against my own free will, quite frankly. I did not want to be splonging around in the Shadowlands as I had been doing for decades. I did not want to be suffering or struggling anymore, and I was blessed accordingly with renewed vigour and renewed resilience and renewed determination to thrive. And yes, here we are, 1st of July 2023. So all I have to do now is stop loving that man that was disingenuous, and I don't know how long that's going to take. It's been over 9 years now, and I guess stop focusing on a future that is unrealistic, because we don't. But then on the other hand, if you don't have your dreams and your aspirations, what do you have? I did for years hyper focus on living on Byron Bay by the sea with a man I love. That was my fantasy, right? Sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. It's just a sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. But without your fantasies and your little delusions of grandeur, what have you got left? Not very bloody much, darlings. But anyway, I am happier now than I've ever been in my life, and the happiness comes from years of therapy with my esteemed and worthy and noble doctor who's fought hard for me. It's come from the wild shamanic, I'm raising my arms, people, the wild shamanic dance. It's come from the self-determination to succeed in my small endeavours. It's come from never giving up on myself and my spirit and my ideals. And it's even come from the unrequited love that was never fulfilled, because that love that I carefully curated and nurtured and kept alive within my own heart, even though it was rejected by that man and men that came before him in cruel, callow ways, that love that I keep burning inside of me, gifted me in more ways than even I can explain or imagine, and drew the attention, no doubt, of the angels and the gods and whatever entity came to dance with me last night, right? So I suppose what I'm saying here is that my time is limited on earth now. I'm 58, and who knows how long is a piece of string? Who knows how long we have on this earth? But I'm grateful and satisfied with what is and what was, what never shall be, and what always will be, the Holy One. And perhaps my true love is in another dimension, far, far away. And I'll meet them when I transcend this physical body. But in the meantime, I'll be dancing, I'll be creating, and I'll be loving me. And my true friends, and my pets, my garden, my home, and whoever chooses to be in my energy with pure intentions and honour and genuine care, I'll be loving them too. And not sure what to do about the love for that one. That was awful, but it will all make sense in the end. So goodbye from me at Sacred Space. Just as I said goodbye, the time was 1:11:38. Not the time, the tracking on the video. So there's angels in the architecture spinning in infinity, and we say hallelujah. Paul Simon, Graceland. So on that note, goodbye my darlings. Have a beautiful, bright, blessed day. I'm going back in the house for another cup of tea and a bit of a lie down because my neck is cold. It was so lovely and warm when I started this video just over an hour ago, and now I'm cold. Okay, bye for now. Take good care. Don't worry about me and my entities. I'm not possessed by any demons, I don't think. I hope not. But you'd know if my head starts spinning or I do a Linda Blair impersonation. No, I'm joking about that. I feel comforted that something steps in to protect me when I'm, vulnerable and creatively expressing myself through the dance. I think it's a positive and wonderful thing that I have such powerful love and protection from the etheric realms. I certainly didn't have such powerful love and protection from, human male partners ever in my entire life. So who knows, maybe that entity that jumped in is actually my love partner from the other dimension that I aspire to meet one day. Who bloody knows? It's all good though. It's all very good. I know that the universe is moving around me with grace and with kindness and with protection and with truest, deepest love. And it may not be a human love that is comprehensible by human constructs, but it's beautiful and it's soul nourishing, and I'm grateful for it. Bye for now.